Hey, you've done it. You've clicked and you're here at the Let's Dig Into That podcast. We're happy to have you. If you're coming back, thank you for joining us at Let's Dig Into That. We have made it our mission to remain honest and curious as we explore the horrors of being intentionally human.
The horrors gets me every time.
I know. It's just that real, though. I mean,
Absolutely.
all
We
day.
get through it by being vulnerable.
Explicit horrors on the daily. And today, who am I chatting with? The chocolate to my marshmallow. Ooh. The skipper of this dinghy. It is the wishful prankster himself, JT. Wishful prankster.
That was well done. Well
Thank
done.
you, skipper.
And of course, the voice that you just heard, she is my piano playing powerhouse. Yeah, I threw that out there. She played me happy birthday. That's exactly right.
I did.
And my hip hop loving hottie. It's Jordan, everybody.
Boop. Thank you. I got moves.
Yeah, I was going to see if you were going to rap.
Yeah, my beats and my moves, they are different levels. So I did call you a wishful prankster, and I'm like, wishful?
That's what that meant?
Yeah.
Not a successful prankster?
No, because I was just like, oh man, so funny, and your sense of humor is what draws me to you, but you are not exactly rock star at pranks, which is okay, because I'm good enough for both of us.
What show was that where they either go way too soft or way too hard on the pranks?
I don't know.
I forget what it was, but like one of them is like, oh, I took your spoon at dinner, and then the next time he tries,
You
it's
were
like,
adopted.
raccoons in the vents.
Too far. It went too far.
I remember getting
yes.
you. I remember popping out on you one time, scaring
We
you.
do scare each other. That's
Yeah.
true. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay.
You can yeah.
The first time I
have
ever
no
scared Jordan, I was ducked down behind the couch, and I just popped out and went, and her reaction was fetal position, fear fart.
Yeah, I unleashed an unexpected toot in the, and I mean, it's best to get to know someone right away. And so I'll either throw a punch or flatulence.
Yeah, you do post up, but that particular time, it was the first time I'd ever scared you. And it was like you lost your breath and it came out your butt.
It's exactly what happened. I'm a scientific miracle. But no, I did recently,
you're a
though, I got
trooper.
you the best I ever have, which I'm proud of. But I was just innocently, he walks into the garage. JT closes the door behind. There's a door between the garage, stepping in there. And I bend down to the oven to check on whatever I had baking there. I'm not a huge baker. We'll call it chocolate chip cookies.
You are.
And sure enough, as I'm low, I realize he's out there and I am out of sight where our oven is.
Yep.
And sure enough, I scared him. He squealed and about dropped what was in his hands, caught it. Yep. I've got you in my ski goggles before.
When you got me in the ski goggles, I saw you dive behind the couch. I saw it. I don't know why. And then you popped out and it still scared me. And I made this noise that I didn't recognize. And that also scared me. So I was like,
it was. I peed a little that time, probably. But no, that.
But I
was
saw you. Why?
But I think it must have been shadow work because you scared us both. It was off the rails. But no, I do have. I'm curious.
Ooh.
Shockerino, right on
it.
theme. I'm curious today. Do you remember your very first childhood memory or
First thing that I
infant?
can recall?
Yeah, how long back?
Oh,
in time?
pretty young actually. My parents we traveled to the East Coast where they were from Colorado, and we were around the ocean and the Chesapeake Bay, and so we were always around water. And so they threw me in and my sister into swimming lessons when we were like 18 months, 2 years old.
Oh, what is that called? Isn't that like a training?
It was called infant swimming research at the time. It's
traumatizing camp. Trauma
Exactly.
camp.
They've done a lot of work since the late 80s on how to make it less traumatizing, because to graduate from this program, they literally put you in your snow gear, and you're thinking, oh, we're going sledding. This is awesome. And then they dump you in a pool.
Because you're supposed to get to your back.
And to graduate, you float on your back, and then you have to flip over and swim to the side.
Not
And
equipped. I would not be equipped as a parent to, what's it called again?
Infant swimming research.
Huh.
And I'm not sure if it's still a thing, or I know it's evolved to be a little bit less traumatic. But my first memory is absolutely floating in the water, like mid-level. I'm not at the surface. I'm not at the bottom.
You're underwater.
I am underwater and kind of out of control. Like what I remember is my body kind of flailing all over the place and looking down. And the instructor, I won't use her name, but I hated her in the moment, but she's actually a very nice lady. She had this huge like diver's fin, like flipper on, just one of them, and it had a giant smiley face on it. And what I remember is like my body flailing through the water back to the surface from the current of that ridiculous flipper. That's like the first thing I can
reasoning current kind of, but yes, but you, and so negative.
Well, I don't know. Probably. I mean, the reason that stuck in my head is probably not for good reason. But it's also maybe the first time like my body was completely out of control. You know what I mean? Like it was like a zero gravity moment almost. And so there's a lot of reasons why I could have remembered that, but I'm not sure exactly why it stuck with me.
There's not a day that goes by that we don't note that your memory is significantly better than mine.
Well, I want to hear yours. Like, how far can you go back?
I'm not sure because it's how much is story and photos and those, that shoulder camcorder with the full VHS clamp and tape that like those memories before I could recall them on my own being, like they seem so real. Like, did I remember asking Santa for donuts for Christmas?
Or have
is
you just
that
heard the story a million times?
Did it even happen? No, there's a picture of me with donuts, and I think I'm asking again this year.
So you're curious.
But I do remember the carpet of my house. I remember like being at the fence to see the horses at the home where I was born to 3 years old. I was born in a hospital, just in case anyone was curious. Not in the home, but
where they took you home to.
But I did just confirm we moved out right around the time I was 3, and I remember, for some reason the carpet. But I wonder.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. And there's still pieces of furniture in the family that have moved many, many houses through the years. But like the church pew that sits at my dad's house, I'm like, there's a picture of me surrounded by teddy bears. That like, do I remember how itchy that outfit was? But I don't know. But I can remember meals. Like
interesting.
Like those.
I did it all so early in the episode. Gosh,
I'm a fascinating creature.
So your memories are, what I'm gathering are more based from your senses.
It seems like those, because when I reach for the early, it's like, the smell of grandma's house, kind of the texture of things.
Do you have a particular memory of like a meal you loved as a kid?
Ooh,
like I'm wondering if that's a stronger memory for you.
It's a funny story, but a meal that I had as a kid. The folks that were kind enough to be that village that helped raise this craziness, Gaga and Papa, they are truly saints on this earth, and they took care of one kiddo at a time. They were retired, and
so you were
she
lucky.
kept one kid at a time for 1 year total. And we all know that I'm 40, and Gaga and I spoke yesterday. And so Gaga and I are still
Can't
very tight.
escape this.
But Papa is the one actually that taught me to play piano.
Oh, wow.
So how nice on the little shout out there.
Nice.
But they made the joke that they taught us to make breakfast pizza, which is a big tradition now in our family that we make around Christmas on Christmas Day, and per request often throughout the year. But they made the joke that, Jordan, this pizza's got your name written all over it. And I was so young that I don't remember. Him saying
not
it.
a saying.
I remember
you were
being
with.
confused and sort of feeling out of the joke because they talked to me like I was a little adult often, and we watched Unsolved Mysteries. But I came back in the kitchen and they realized I hadn't gotten it, and he had cut out little letters and spelled out Jordan, an individual little on the pizza. And then I was like, well, that pizza did have my name written all over it. And so but that smell, you could put me in any country in the world, and if breakfast pizza, I would be.
I don't have any evidence to support this other than just people have told me this my entire life, but I'm pretty sure your olfactory, your sense of smell, is the most connected to your memory, actually. For all people, not just you, who I think we're figuring out is remembering things based on your senses. Like your
touch and taste.
You remember much more about.
I'm not a great listener,
Smells
we've established, but I can sniff you and tell you, give you a full report back. But yeah, I think the sense is more so for me. And it's interesting too, your
Jar.
dyslexia, I
Yes.
think makes memory a really unique
Well,
how
yeah. I
you, because
mean,
you're like the auditory, your listening skills being so much
well,
greater.
as a dyslexic, I do think that that has a major play into my memory for sure. I had to be more perceptive. I knew that I was different because I couldn't read
Hmm.
and all the other kids could. And so I got really good at picking up on cues and seeing other things. Like you already mentioned, grandma's house. I can literally go through like a blueprint in my head what my
Hmm.
grandma's house looks like on my dad's side, and I was probably there a total of 6 times in my entire
Ever.
life, ever.
Like a once a
But I
year
could
on the annual visit, you'd go to grandma's.
exactly, but I could literally run you through that entire house, like every square inch.
And do you think, what do you have any reasons of your own?
I think it's because
Because
of
I'm
the
going, your mom put the fear of God. Don't break anything. Like, and so you're like, just, I am on high alert.
I'm sure that's part of it, but another like let's talk about memories and how they're built. It's your brain and it's connecting in new ways. Like a lot of people think your brain stops developing around 25, 26 years old. That's fact. That's a real thing. However, we keep having these connections. Your neurons keep firing and you're remapping how your brain works all the time. And in significant moments, that's how memories are created, the real ones at least, because we all have a lot of fake ones from the documentation of our lives. But I would credit that to looking and watching the cues from my parents, especially as a little kid. My dad going back to see his mom was a important thing for him, and so I was very perceptive on how my dad was feeling.
You picked up on the meaningful
It was meaningful to him, and so therefore, even
experience.
as a little kid, it was meaningful for me. You know what I mean? I also think there's a little bit of an element of we were on our way to vacation every time we stopped in to see grandma, so there was
So
like this
close.
anticipation, and it was just exciting, and so like I think that's what created the rewiring and that connection in my brain was the twofold of being excited about something and then also seeing the significance of the moment on my parents' face. Does that make sense?
That's really cool, kind of to think about that you are almost wanting as a little kid to connect, like my dad thinks this is awesome. It's, like you could think
Yeah,
about that like his baseball, and so I want to try to get into it too. And oh,
absolutely.
it's really sweet. I think about my poor dad and his broken nose. He's broken it 17, 18,
Oh
20
my
times,
God.
wrestling, football, my mom on accident a couple times. And so his sniffers down, like that poor man in his memory. That's tricky.
Yeah.
Grandma's, yeah, the smell, like I wonder too. And yeah, textures. I feel like grandma's house, I can think instantly about her playing cards and the itchy wool of the what do you call the divan? Is that a fancy word for a sofa?
I don't know.
Shakarina. We'll get into your microwave table at
If
some
it
point.
is, we're going to start calling this couch where we do our podcast the divan.
The divan.
Welcome to the divan.
Yeah, it goes with the lanai. It gives me a little bit of Golden Girls life there. You were talking about misremembering things. And so how much do you think, what's the accuracy rate you think?
Oh man, I think it's my personal opinion is like almost I think that we probably 70% of what we remember. And again, this isn't expert. I'm not looking at stats here on something we researched. That would be my guess is I think only 30% of the memories in my brain are things that happened and 70% are things that I was told happened or
That you just, yeah, take to be true.
take to be true based on pictures, based on like the documentation of my upbringing. Like I have memories that I know I don't remember.
There was a scary, your 70% jogged my memory of a study that I saw not too long ago that was so I can't give any reference points. We're great with our, yeah, put it in the show notes, whatever that means. But that 70% of folks in this study confessed to it, were interrogated for a crime they didn't commit and then confessed to it with specific details. So 70% of people that are innocent are then brought into a situation where they are edged, nudged, kind of urged to respond in a certain way. And 70% believe that they have now committed a crime that they have not. That's terrifying to me.
Wow.
And then there was what that the Mandela.
Yeah, the Mandela
You were
Effect.
telling me about that.
Yeah, so when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned, a
Yes,
lot of
it
people
was-
started believing, because he was in prison for so long, that he had died in prison. And that spread so much.
In 2009, this effect was coined, the Mandela effect, because it was an overwhelming number of people that were under
across cultures.
Across
Like, this
cultures,
was a
globally.
worldwide phenomenon.
worldwide wrong fake news moment. Yes.
Yeah.
And so in 2009, this woman, and I think there's been a movie made about it, so maybe we were the last to know, but I was fascinated by the fact that an entire group, we take it to be true.
Wow.
And so
So again, I'm looking at my phone right now, and I'm also listening
good.
to you, but I couldn't throw out my 70% not know. According to, this is just straight up Google, what comes up now. So thanks to AI, they just answer your questions right away.
They just know.
22% of what we remember is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Disheartening.
Yeah, that's so.
If
I was
I
pretty
closed
close, but I
my-
went. Price is Right. I went over. Come on.
But no, if I closed my eyes right now, I don't think I could tell you what color shirt you were wearing.
Huh.
That's upsetting.
That's one of the things that really, really gets me captivated when we talk about memories is when I say memory,
Ooh, I think.
as far as like
Yeah.
if that's a past, present, future
Exactly. I
kind
was
of
all
thing.
in the past, and I didn't even think
Well,
about that till right now.
When you hear memory, you inherently think back in the past because you're remembering something that already happened, right?
But I need to remember to buy milk tomorrow.
And that's a different type of memory. Do you know what kind of memory that's called? We talked about it.
Can you prospect for gold? Prospective. Perspective memory.
Ooh,
That's how
look
I
at
lock-
your reticular
Mnemonic device.
Mnemonic device, yeah. I like
Perspective memory, I think, is super cool because it's not only the milk, but it is I wake up with my why, that I am reminded of the intentional nature of what I'm doing and what my goals are for the day. And so having even just, I need to remember to call that person back is a really healthy rewiring.
Absolutely.
Oh, I have another smell question when the time is right.
Go for it.
Do you think there's I think about like the smell of a hospital is what
Oof.
made me think of that. And I'm wondering if that, where we store those memories in our brain, where if smell is closely linked to trauma and strife.
Well, I mean, I definitely think.
Because I would feel like if there was an assault moment, that sense would be something I would probably struggle to let go of in a healing process.
There's a term called priming. And priming in relation to memory means something environmental that jogs a memory for you, that brings it back up.
Primed to
and
recall.
that's definitely most common in our olfactory senses.
Okay.
So that makes complete sense that you would remember the smell of a place before you could even remember where the place was. Like that's 100% real. And it definitely happens to people. For instance, when I drive into my hometown, you get off the highway and one of the first things that you pass is a McDonald's. You know where I grew up,
Yes.
and it's right there on the right. And I remember the smell of exiting the highway more than I know the number of my exit because it smells like French fries.
Yeah, what exit number was that? And I wonder if Mickey D's fries are probably one of the most.
Oh, I'm sure that jogs so many memories for people. And it could even be like not just the food. Like I have very happy memories of being a chubby little chunkster riding my bike to the McDonald's and calling back for a ride up the hill.
Oh, I would jog to get a frozen custard in our little downtown, and I would ask my sweet, sweet dad to come. It was 1.7 miles, and I earned that mocha peanut butter cup.
Nice.
Large concrete. Oh, yeah.
McFlurry?
Yeah.
McFlurry?
No, it was a privately owned family, super cool. It was called, when they just opened, it was called SRO Custard, standing room only. They just had a teeny counter.
I love
and
that.
We blew it up because I kept them in business. But it was delicious. And yeah, I got opinions on frozen custard.
But getting us back on track with memory, I think it's important that people recognize that memory, I associate it, I'm 100% guilty. That takes me straight back. I'm thinking in the past. Memory is actually a present thing. It is something that you can control in the present moment. And if you do it that way, it's more powerful. And I'm speaking from personal experience because I've had a lot of wonderful things happen recently. You know, we got
That's
married
nice to hear.
and I found myself in the moment thinking, man, I want to remember this moment. And there's so many memories in my life of things that I know happened, but I don't have the details. And so I will literally take a pause and practice some mindfulness, take the moment in and make that sort of mental picture and try to make that a active thing that I can recall. And so to your perceptive memory categories, like it's not really a thing of the past. We do get to control with how our brain works, how much we can take in and how much and like it's endless. That's one of the coolest facts about memory is did you know like I always played that game of like, oh, well, I don't need that knowledge, so I've got space for more. Not a thing. Endless capacity in our brains. It's just nuts to
Like
me.
when those song lyrics come up and you're like, why? Why could I not remember
Right.
to call so-and-so on their birthday? And this
But I know the whole
moment.
rap to Waterfalls by TLC.
Oh, left eye, it's in there.
I know
It's
it is.
in
It
there.
just comes out of you.
So I think I'm most excited about memory reminding me of the what I'm looking forward to in the future. I'm
Yes.
still on my anticipation joyride.
Thank you for pounding home my point of
You're welcome.
memory is not a past thing. It is present and it actually helps you guide towards the future. We just did a podcast on self-discipline. If you actively think about self-discipline and think about times in your life where you had great self-discipline, guess what happens moving forward?
You're probably, I'm going to take a guess, but I feel like when you've got those goggles on, when you've been recalling this self-discipline time, you're probably likely to hit up the salad bar
Exactly.
versus have a,
Well,
ice cream night.
There's been a lot of talk of how our brains work recently. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score.
If everyone in the world doesn't have this, it's fascinating.
It is-
Bessel, it'll be in the show notes. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score.
It is so powerful.
It's devastating and powerful and magnificent.
Yeah, exactly. All of those things in one
He's
book.
going on my book.
But the point that I want to make is like what we hold a lot of times is outside of our control. And trauma, when we have that fight or flight response, our amygdala perceives danger, we are not taking in new information. That is not when we're learning and building
No.
new pathways. And it's so interesting because, oh, I did it again. I love this fact because a lot of people think, man, I just recall those memories. Like I hold on to the bad things. And in reality, it's not your brain doing that, it's your body. And that's important to recognize. Like there is so much to how your brain works. It functions in a way to protect us. There's a reason most of us can only recall accurately.
Our brain protects us in a lot
we're
of
being
ways.
we're being protected, yeah.
And which brings me to, my punchline PSA of like selective memory, the key to a long lasting, loving relationship.
Who's that? Maya Angelou or Joan Didion? Who said that? That was like a.
Oh, that was selective deafness. We did
Oh,
shout out
right.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, yeah,
selective-
RBG, that's right.
Also encourage, they kind of work hand in hand. But selective memory, we have recently chatted about not drinking, and it is really hard for me sometimes. Like you don't remember every fun night you've ever had but when there are chunks that are where it's like, oh yeah, I forgot those 4 people
Were there that night. Yeah.
and that is so
Well,
heartbreaking. What do I do? Delete all those photos that remind me and just let it be a black hole? Because right now, as we've mentioned, I'm 40. I got to know what I need to do to stay on the hunt for greatness in my future.
I love that. And there's a reason I'm not a drinker. And I've been to way too many concerts where I come to way past what I wanted to see.
Missed it.
Right.
I missed
and
it.
it's like, I don't miss that one sense. And substances aside, that's a different thing. But yes, you're absolutely right that even on those nights out having a good time, there's things that you can't recall. And that might be to protect yourself more than anything else of like, I want this to be a really positive memory. That person sucks. Out. You're not in there.
Yeah.
So.
But I find just my presence and my wisdom so incredibly lovely to be around. I can't imagine what knowledge I've just spewed on that. Ugh. And so it's really hard to go when I see like a phone memory and it's like, hey, remember the great time. And I'm like, I parts of it.
Yeah.
And so I would really like, so for future planning,
For future
how
planning,
do I
yes.
make my memory do wonderful things? I've got the perspective, keeping my eye on the prize, looking ahead.
Right. And that perspective memory stuff of the conscious things that you need to remember in your short term, that is a super strong tool for actually working with your memory.
That's true. The little to-do lists, the games, like
Yeah.
Sudoku and stuff is really
Exactly.
sharp.
If you can keep your brain sharp, that's a great tool as well. But also focusing on the things that you want to focus on. I know that sounds
Like the multitasking.
can definitely steer your brain away from, because using positive memories from your past where you've accomplished things that you were proud of, where you've done things that were outside of what you're doing right now, to be able to focus on those particular memories is a way to prepare for the future. Does that make sense?
I definitely have personal experience with the like, you got this, which has zero founding at the time, where I am in a truly, you probably don't got shit kind of a state in my life. And I will be like, you, that power is within you, sort of. And my mind does kind of like, all right, we got to pump it back up. And that's not, I mean, that's a very fortunate wiring that, and you said even in rest, I think.
Yeah.
Did you
The
say
way that our brains work is usually the things that were the strongest, the things that had personal connections with us, those synapses that happened in our brains that formed a connection that created a memory for us, that is what's going on in your brain when you're dreaming. Is you're actually going into those memories and adjusting them. And it's pretty interesting. Bad dreams, nightmares are sort of the
I'm
same thing.
fascinated by
They're
dreams.
usually rooted in some source of reality, even though they can have extremely unrealistic tendencies, but they're usually rooted in a memory. Isn't that interesting? God, did it
Terrifying,
again.
terrifying, fascinating, all
Yeah.
of the above. Whoa. What is your long-term memory? There's a word for that. I think I do have it. What's your, yeah, when it's the things that
Sounds like you might know better than me. I don't know.
starts with an S. Ooh, semantic.
Semantic.
I think that's the long term. Anyway, I just thought, yeah, since I threw up perspective came back, I was like, what other flashcards that I never made?
Right.
Yes. So, yeah, what else? I feel that it's, yeah, memory, selective memory.
Well, everyone says the classic term. It's sort of an old adage at this point, but your perception becomes your reality. And I think with memory, there's nothing more true than that, because I don't recall a lot of the things that I see pictures of that I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, I did that. And like, so I think that's the important thing to, when you're discussing memory and how it's going to affect your life, it's another tool in your brain that is supporting you by protecting you from a lot of different things, but also your body's keeping that score sometimes with the Bessel van der Kolk, where you could get a smell that could trigger you back to something else. And so being mindful, that's what I was sort of going on, is I've been practicing this and I'm having success with it. It feels really great to be like, this is a moment I want to remember. I'm going to focus on making this special. And sometimes that means like doing something a little out of the normal to, scaring you that night would be a great example of like, oh, remember that night that I scared you? That was the night that we were in Telluride, blah, 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 blah. Like, I think being intentional with attempting to create your own memories is actually a great form of future planning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes great sense.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, yeah.
And using your memories from the past as well as
It's hard
a way
not
to
to
prepare.
think. How do you not get lost in comparison though? Where thought this was, expectations and yeah, if I was using it for, I think just being relatively gentle with yourself. But how do you not get caught up in wanting to make it more than it is? And that's the way you want to log it away.
Yeah, I think we run into that problem a lot. And anticipation, I think, is pretty closely linked to our memory as well. When we can remember doing something that was really fun, like being excited about an upcoming trip. Why are you excited?
Oh,
Because you have memories of past really fun, exciting trips. And so that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, is if you can take a positive memory like that trip was so fun and use it to anticipate the next one, that's a wonderful way to do it. But it does get fishy with the expectation management because we don't know what's going to happen. But you're setting your intentions right. You know,
Right.
you're setting yourself up to hopefully succeed.
Yeah, but how do you not get stuck then in that? Well, it wasn't like last year, it wasn't as good as, and yeah, the comparison, I think that's just something maybe I'm hoping to let go of in a huge way in my life, that it's not serving me at all. And
Yeah.
so I think that if I had like, oh man, that, yeah, I was really swept off my feet, you're set up for failure.
Well-
If I have my top 3 sweeping moments just, stockpiled.
So that's the reason I wanted to put an emphasis on memories not being all about the past, because you can have that memory, you can create the anticipation, and then still using memory, you need to be in the present. That's where the mindfulness comes in. That's when you can take that second and be like, I'm in a new place, in a new space. Look at the street market, whatever we were traveling to do, be in the moment, create the new memory, as opposed to being focused on the memory that created the anticipation. Like being present in the moment is almost more important than having the strong memory, because we already know most of what we recall isn't accurate.
Bunch of, yeah, hooey. Bunch of
Right.
snapshotted hooey.
Absolutely.
I'm very,
Did that answer your question at all?
it did.
Sort of a roundabout way, but
I liked it because I do think, as we were talking about, like focusing, being in the moment, not the multitasking, I think is really good advice for me to think about, but just also the importance of having, for any of us at any age, you have to have that look forward to stuff. If you aren't giving, and those memory, yeah, you have to give yourself some ingredients to feed off of.
anticipation is created by your memory.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this has got me all jazzed up. Okay.
I love your thinking face.
I'm trying to take it all in. I don't
Well,
think I blinked in like 42
Memory is,
seconds.
I mean, Inception. There's movies made about this. Memento. Like there's.
Apparently,
I didn't mean to go straight
Mandela
Christopher
Effect.
Nolan movies there, but it's just a captivating, fascinating thing that our brains do, and being more conscious and aware of how you can use it to your advantage is important.
Absolutely. I noticed that I am writing down, I'm doing a better job of jotting some of the sensations and feels and little tidbits of those momentous days, good, bad, and otherwise, because sometimes it's nice to see the heat kind of cool off too.
Oh, absolutely.
And I like going back to, and I don't, circle back and go review what's been lived already, but I love when it's like, oh my goodness. I thought today couldn't be, but today, for example, today I literally had to stop my car for a chicken to cross the road.
I thought it was a heron.
And I didn't want to know that, like, that herons I saw on the way, that was absolutely unbelievable. And
Yeah.
so they were just taking a little snack break
Big ol'
wherever
birds.
they were migrating to, but that was awesome. But on my way back, white chicken, erratic, excited, on his way. And I was like, I'm going to listen to this fascinating book because on my way home and not remember the chicken. So I took the second while I was waiting on said bird and texted my dad and said, chicken crossed the damn road right in front of me. And so I found out no more additional
Sent your
information
dad
on his.
a real life dad joke.
I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did. Felt right in the moment. He was pretty cute. Well, thank you. This has been
Yeah.
really,
Fun
I
topic.
might remember it. Ask me again in a week.
Fun topic to dig into for sure, and vast and overarching, but I think we had a really positive conversation.
Because it is, we got here because it all started where JT will say, like, do you remember your 5th grade teacher? And I'm like, I remember, I loved school, was good, but I do not have great recall. I am so sorry. I would, if I sat and took the time, I'm sure they would come back. But your recall of all of the amazing adults in your life
Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Bosel, Mr. Harris, Mrs. Arnold, Mrs. McIntosh.
We did it.
That was my elementary school. Boom. All of them.
My mom was my
5.
principal.
You can't recall any of your teachers.
She gave me a ride. I threw a bird funeral.
Well, again, the dyslexic aspect of things, of why my brain was firing in that certain moment is so cool.
You were like, I'm going to latch onto the readers. These
oh,
adults know
she's
stuff.
raising her hand. I'm going to go sit next to her and
like
then be
it.
like, man, is that really how you spell that? And then they'd give you that one word and I could figure out the rest of that sentence. That's how I managed for a long time.
I'm proud of you.
And so I was more perceptive in those moments, and then making sure that those teachers didn't catch on to my inability to read was important to me. And
Right.
I formed those memories because of that. You know what I mean? That's how it works. The connections in your brain. Fascinating. Fascinating.
I loved it. Thank you for being here with me.
Of course. Great talk, baby.
Be brave, beautiful friends.
Stay curious, everyone. Come back and see us.
I'm Jordan.
And I'm JT. Till next time.